continue to conduct the essential business and comply with the Public Health Administration recommendations to protect the public and city employees practicing social distancing and limited exposure by not allowing in-person public meetings. To ensure that the public will be able to participate, public comment can be submitted as live comments during Zoom meetings and via email at publiccomments@cityofglendora.org. I urge our residents and our businesses to visit our city website, cityofglendora.org/COVID-19, to stay up to date and informed as we continually engage with federal, state, and county officials on our push to keep our economy open and keep us all safe. And as a reminder, our August City Council meetings will be canceled for the entire month. This will give staff much needed time to take care of other business. A brief lineup under special items, we have a presentation on paycheck protection and COVID-19 reopening the economy updates. We have one continuation of a public hearing, 4 consent items, 1 unfinished business, and 1 new business. Deputy City Clerk, can you please conduct the roll call?
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I would like to conduct an oral roll call and request that each council member respond with present when their name is called. Councilmember Thompson?
Present.
Councilmember Boyer?
Present.
Councilmember Friedendahl?
David?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Present.
And Mayor Alawas?
Present.
All council members are present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Elvia. And now for our invocation or pledge. Invocation will be by Pastor Bob Morris at the Church of the Brethren.
Let us pray. Let us pray. Dear God, as we open another Glendora City Council meeting, we ask your blessing, wisdom, and guidance on Mayor Alawas, Mayor Pro Tem Davis, Council Members Friedendahl, Boyer, and Thompson, and all of the staff that assist them. Likewise, place your hand on all participants at this evening's meeting. Grant that our leaders and all of our citizens will do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God. May this be a safe and wonderful place for liberty and the pursuit of happiness for all people. We pray for our COVID-19 heroes, doctors, nurses, and other medical professionals, especially those on the front lines treating patients who are severely ill. Protect our heroes, keep them healthy, provide them much needed rest, show them hope and relief. Bless and protect our police. Help them be fair and just as they do their work. Even when the adrenaline is pumping, help them do their jobs professionally, respecting the rights of each and every citizen. These are difficult times. Please be gracious and merciful to us. We ask for your miraculous intervention with regard to this COVID-19 pandemic. We pray the vaccines will be safe, effective, and available soon. We pray that we will continue to protect one another by wearing face coverings, by maintaining a social distance, by limiting our contacts with others, and by taking all the precautions and following all the rules that have been laid down for us. We also pray for those whose livelihood, their earning power, and general well-being has been severely impacted by the pandemic. Help all those who are fighting to stay alive. Help family members who cannot be close to their loved ones. Comfort all those who are grieving the loss of loved ones at this time. Help us with all the normal and continuing responsibilities and obligations that are a regular part of our daily life. And please take care of all those things that I have missed. You know what's ahead. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Thank you, Pastor Morris. Can we, I'd like to invite Fawn in Bowden to lead us in the pledge. Please stand.
Oh, what an honor to affirm and express gratitude for the ideals, freedoms, and building of our great nation. Would you please place your hand over your heart and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Fawn. This brings us to our first special item, the Paycheck Protection Program. On March 23rd, 2020, Vicki Van Bernstein began her tenure as the ACCU's new president and CEO. She is the third chief executive in the credit union's 62-year history. Vicki, a native Philadelphian and a graduate of Wharton School of Business with a BS in economics and an MBA from New York University School of Business, and just recently moved to Glendora with her 2 teenage children. Vicki will be presenting details and opportunities for the Paycheck Protection Program loan this evening. Vicki?
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Mayor Alois. What an honor and a privilege to be here with you this evening. I can honestly say that in my career in both Pennsylvania and Texas, this is the first time I have appeared at a city council meeting. Thank you so much.
It's nice being the first.
I moved to Glendora along with my family in March. What a wonderful city this has been for our family. You all have been very kind, very generous, very welcoming to me, and very good to our business here as well. Thank you. And I want to say I couldn't think of a better place to shelter in place than Glendora.
Happy to have you.
Thank you. I appreciate so much the Zoom introduction and the visit with Mayor Pro Tem Reverend Karen Davis, who I see is here. Merely on my 3rd week of employment, she outreached to me. Your offer to help me and our friendship with the credit union means so much, especially during this pandemic. And then to have our town mayor visit me 2 weeks ago with my first in-person visit in our headquarters with a city leader was really special. And I have the tile to prove it. I've saved it. Thank you very much. I will cherish this from the city of Glendora. I appreciate you taking your time from your busy schedule to come by and check on our business. Congratulate us for our recent San Gabriel Valley Favorite Credit Union Award, and to officially welcome me to the city. I'm sitting here before you today as a result of that visit. Thank you, Mayor Alois. And we were discussing ways in which we could serve the community during this challenging time for families and businesses in Glendora. So thank you so much for your outreach. I look forward to meeting Councilman Frendell and also Councilman Boyer. And I just wanted to mention to Chief Egan, please, we want you to know how much we support you, how much we pray for you and your team, and how much you've helped and supported us during some really challenging times. So thank you very, very much. So let's go into our next slide. Whether it be honoring our hometown heroes at Patriot Week event, praying for our city at the annual Mayor's Prayer Breakfast, hosting Coffee with a Cop events to provide child ID fingerprint kits for families, supporting Empty Bowls fundraiser to help those in need, finding forever homes for shelter pets at the Pause for Pets. We're thankful for our caring, dedicated, and effective city leadership for their unwavering support in building a stronger community together. I just want to commend each and every one of you and thank you for your strong and steady leadership to create a thriving environment for business and citizens of Glendora in the good times and being there for us in these times of uncertainty. Again, I would be remiss not to take the rare opportunity here to express our deep gratitude and unwavering support for our police department, which continues to provide a very safe environment for all of us. You are the key to the confidence we have in city government and for our safety as a business. Thank you for your dedicated and sacrificial service to the city. A huge shout out again to Chief Egan for protecting us. We appreciate that. We know that we're under your watchful eye here in Glendora. We really appreciate it. Next slide, please. I thank all of the government leaders for all you're doing to protect us. And we are really trying to have impact for community good, all of us, and especially those of us here at America's Christian Credit Union. As Peter said in 1 Peter 4:10, God has given each of you a special gift. Use it to help and serve each other, passing on to others God's many kinds of blessings. Next slide, please. A little bit about ACCU. We are relentlessly dedicated to serving Christian communities here and around the country with banking services that advance the kingdom of God. We do this by supporting, advising, and building stronger families, stronger ministries, stronger communities, and futures through ethical and sound financial principles. As you can see, we've won the San Gabriel Valley Favorite Credit Union 2020 just recently, and we have a 5-star rating from Bauer Financial. But I appreciate the support in voting for us, but that's not what I'm here to talk about tonight. I'm here to talk about the Paycheck Protection Loans. So let's go to the next slide. So these loans I want to speak about are provided by financial institutions, banks, and credit unions across the country, including America's Christian Credit Union, to help you paying your business payroll and certain specific expenses. You can see the amount of loans that we've already made, roughly $56 million in PPP loans. You can see that 41% of those loans have been to churches, 41% to businesses, 11% to ministries. And what these loans are all about is you become an approved participant through us, and we are an approved lender with the Small Business Administration. And we take applications from churches, ministries, Christian schools, small businesses, sole proprietorships, and independent contractors. You apply for the loan. You can do it with either ACCU, America's Christian Credit Union, or you can do it with your other credit unions or banks. You use the funds as directed, and then you can apply and receive loan forgiveness. So this is the government's way of getting money out into the hands of businesses to pay their payroll, to pay their utility bills, their rent, and their mortgage. If your business is struggling, you should think about getting a PPP loan. If your business has been negatively impacted by COVID-19, you should really think about a PPP loan. Here's what one of our members said. OMG, where do I start? I was struggling to get help for the PPP from my own bank, who I've been with for over 20 years. I tried 5 different banks. Finally, my good friend recommended I try America's Christian Credit Union. I sent the first email and the response was immediate, set up the new account, applied for the PPP, all via secured email and websites. Within 2 weeks, I was funded. So I'm emphasizing this within 2 weeks. If your business is having problems and struggling because of COVID-19, you can go to your bank or credit union, apply for one of these loans, and within 2 weeks, you can get funding to pay your payroll. This person said, I can't believe it. I will immediately begin using ACCU for my business and personal banking going forward. I can't wait to see our relationship grow. Thank you very much. So what's great about this program is the Small Business Administration has extended the applications through August 8th. So all banks and credit unions that are participating in the program can continue to take your application through August 8th. And the SBA has approved $520 billion in funding. So again, $520 billion has been provided in relief. If your business is suffering from COVID and you've had financial setbacks, this is a loan for you to consider. Let's go to the next slide. I want to tell you a little bit about how it works. The mayor wanted me to walk through a little of the details. So how the Paycheck Protection Program works. You can go to any bank or credit union that's participating, or you can go to our website at info@americaschristiancreditunion.cu.com/PPP. With any institution that you go to, you have to qualify and become a member of the financial institution, whether that's a credit union or a bank, you have to join. You complete an online initial form. And then we've set this up so you'll automatically receive an email response that allows you to start uploading your documentation. And I will get into that a little bit on the next page. The documentation you have to submit is a little bit detailed. And, you know, the government wants it that way because they're providing these funds. If you're applying as a small business, a nonprofit, an independent contractor, or a sole proprietorship, including nonprofits, you might have to submit your financials, your payroll tax returns, your 1099s, your personal tax returns, including the schedules. Schedule A in particular, if you're a sole proprietorship. You provide this documentation, your loan gets reviewed by an underwriter. They're not looking to see if you can afford to pay the loan back. They're just looking to see if you have a need, you filled out all the forms, and you have payroll and expenses. Once you're approved, you sign a note, so it is a loan, and your loan gets funded by the bank that you're working with. If you're working with ACCU, they will fund the account and put the money into a checking account. And then your bank or credit union will provide an online process and portal for the forgiveness. Downstream, once you've used the funds according to the way they were supposed to be used, you go into that portal and you indicate exactly how you spent the money. And then you're not required to make any loan payments before you apply for forgiveness. You have 24 months to use the funds. Once you've used the funds, you apply for forgiveness and you can be forgiven. Once you're forgiven, you don't owe the loan anymore. Please. Next schedule, please. Okay, so how do you know if you qualify? It's pretty simple. Small businesses with less than 500 employees, independent contractors, sole proprietorships, nonprofits, including religious organizations. If you've been impacted by COVID, you have less than 500 employees, you can apply for this program. Key points of the program: you must use the funds for payroll, paying your employees, keeping them paid, getting them a paycheck. A terrific thing we can do for people right now during COVID. Utilities, mortgage, rent, COVID expenses, use the funds as prescribed. 60% or more of the funds need to be used for payroll, 40% for other expenses. These loans have an interest rate of 1% for any portion that's not forgiven, but if you follow the rules, it'll all be forgiven. New loans issued after June 5th have a maturity of 5 years. Loan payments can be deferred for 6 months. No collateral, personal guarantees. Neither the government nor ACCU nor any other financial institution will charge you any fees. So it's a terrific program if your business is suffering, that you can get money and you can use that money to help your employees. Next slide. I just wanted to mention the America's Christian Credit Union and other financial institutions are helping members. If you're struggling financially, please reach out to us or reach out to your financial institution. We have many ways in which we can help you. The PPP program is only one way. There are other programs we can help you with, helping you in your family, in your business, to help you financially. Reach out to your financial institution. Next slide, please. I just wanted to say about this particular program, the PPP program, 24 of our hometown businesses have already taken advantage of the program. 6 nonprofits, 2.7 million in loans already went to Glendora businesses and ministries. The average loan, $48,000. And across the country, we've given out about $48 million to churches, ministries, Christian schools, businesses that are suffering during this time period. $8 million to businesses. And we ask you, if you are having difficulty as a business, reach out to your bank that's participating, to your credit union that's participating, or us, however you'd like to do this, but reach out for help. We want to be there for you. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you very much, Mayor Alouos. I feel like we're helping Glendora, we're helping our community, and please just ask. We would like to help you during this time period to get through this.
Thank you, Vicki. That was amazing, and I hope those folks watching will take advantage of this this program, because I know that a lot of our businesses are really hurting, and I know that your predecessor Mendel had a lot to do with this as well before he left, and as far as setting up the foundation for the bank to be able to do things like that. So thank you both.
Yes, I want to give a great shout out to Mendel. Mendel, you have been epic in helping to build this credit union and epic in helping me get on board. Thank you so much, sir, for being there.
Well, thank you. And I had nothing to do with the PPP. I credit really everything that Vicki said to her and her outstanding team. And they are here to help. And Vicki, excellent job. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. That will bring us to our next item, our COVID-19 reopening the economy update. I'll invite our city manager, Adam Raymond, to give a report.
Good evening, everyone. So this marks our 7th time or 8th time before council. Don't have an updated PowerPoint for you this evening because there are no updates from last week. So write this down, or 2 weeks ago. This is the first time, had a 2-week span where there are no changes. While there were no additional allowances for reopening the economy, there was no further traction. So as you've gone around the village and other areas of town, you may have seen additional opportunities to do things outside. You can get your nails done and your haircut. You can eat outside. Many of our eateries in both the village and some of our other shopping centers around town have done so. Just as a reminder, you know, as we continue to wade through a lot of what we're doing, we're looking at positivity rates in both LA County and the state of California. And we know with some of the announcements that schools will be at, you know, we'll start at home this year for distance learning, and when we understand that that causes a lot of concerns for both our employees who have school-age children and other people in our community that have children as well. So we're going to try to work with the school district and try to find ways that we can try to help out in this endeavor. So that is the biggest change we've had since the last time we met. So happy to report that no further restrictions in the economy, and we look forward to the infection rate and curve continuing to trend down a little bit, and we can maybe begin to see some additional allowances that were closed. And with that, I will answer any questions you have or any other council members, but happy to be short this evening. And as you mentioned in your opening monologue, please visit the city's website if you have any questions, or don't be afraid to call.
Thank you, Adam. Mendel, do you have any questions of Adam?
No, I think it's good news, and hopefully a vaccine will be coming soon.
David?
No, thank you.
Gary?
Nope, nothing.
Karen?
No.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Adam. This brings us to our public comment segment. So I'll open up public comment period, inviting members of the public to address the city council. If you'd like to request to speak, select the raise hand icon in the Zoom before the close of the public comment period. You will then be called on when your turn is up to speak. Public comment is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Speak once unless a motion to extend is made by city council. This is your time to speak uninterrupted. Please address your comments to me, the presiding officer. Deputy City Clerk, do we have any folks that want to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As of 5:19 today, we did receive one email with a public comment requesting for it to be read that I will read now. We also want to announce very quickly that if we have participants currently on the Zoom call, for you to use the raise hand icon to indicate to us that you would like to participate in public comment, and you will be called. So at this point, I will read the public comment from Mr. Matthew Gelfand, Council for Californians for Home Ownership. Californians for Home Ownership is a 501c3 nonprofit organization devoted to using legal tools to address California's housing crisis. You have been provided with a letter we submitted as part of our work monitoring local compliance with California laws regarding accessory dwelling units. Please review our letter closely. We urge you to continue this item and to direct city staff to engage in a discussion with staff at the State Department of Housing and Community Development regarding our concerns. By consulting with HCD now, the city can avoid going through the onerous process of amending the ordinance if HCD raises these same concerns following its post-adoption review. Based on our recent experiences in other cities, HCD's pre-adoption review is fast and productive. If the city is confident in its drafting decisions, it should have no reservations about discussing them with HCD now. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Matthew Gelfand.
Thank you. Looks like we have the first up would be Mr. Joe Cena from the chamber. Can we unmute Joe?
Joe, are you there?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Hi, Joe. Yes. Okay. You've got 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Alowis, City Council, and staff for allowing me to speak today or this evening. My name is Joe. I'm the President and CEO of the Glendora Chamber of Commerce, and I come to you with just an update of what's been going on. We continue to market and get inquiries about in regards to the community development block grants from the city that we're providing through the city from Glendora businesses. This week we will be funding the first one, yay, which the business owner is so appreciative for the opportunity to participate and will help her tremendously, to getting back on track. I have received many calls, applications, but as you know or may not know, this program is very difficult. And since most businesses have received PPP or EIDL funding, they can't double dip. So it kind of disqualifies some. So, but we continue to work on the project and promote it and see who we can help next. The Chamber also continues to help our businesses navigate the health orders, help determine new working environments, as Mr. Raymond mentioned, kind of moving your operations outside. Working with the city with that is just, it's been great. Had a lot of comments that the business owners are very appreciative for the willingness of the city to work with them and help facilitate this, fast. So I think it's been very successful so far, especially within the challenges that we've had. The Chamber's Legislative Action Economic Development Committee continues to follow legislation, including the ballot measures coming up here in November. We will be holding a town hall as soon as we get a date to help educate voters on what they'll be voting on. Then finally, in regards to that, we will be hosting our August lunch virtual meeting mixer Thursday, August 13th, and LA County Assessor Jeff Prang will be our presenter. So you can go on the Chamber's website, glendorachamber.org. If you want to RSVP for that, we will have a question and answer part of it. Or also go to the prideofthefoothillsstrong.com to get information too in regards to everything going on, links and that type of stuff. So the Chamber is here for our businesses and the community, and I thank you for the time to speak this evening.
Thank you, Joe. Our next speaker is Loretta Manzanares. Is that correct? Did I pronounce it correctly?
Yes, it is.
Wonderful.
Hi. We would like to address the governing body and comment on the Glendora Municipal Code regarding the ADUs. I'm Loretta Manzanares. This is Peter Hughes.
Excuse me, would you like to comment now or at the public hearing when we address the ADUs?
It doesn't matter. Whatever you suggest.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. We're the new owners of the property located at 437 East Bennett Avenue. This 1 acre zone E7 is one of Glendora's last century orange orchards. And as several articles on the internet refer to it as the last living slice of California. It was actually 8 acres back in 1929 until it was sold to the Pittman family in 1941. It's adjacent to the historic Bougainvillea vines. We're here to support the amending of the city's Title 21 zoning, specifically 21.04.010D, development standards for accessory buildings. We bought this property with the intentions of keeping the integrity of the house and respecting the history that it holds. Having been an AD major at Cal Poly SLO and currently living in the beloved Chapman Woods in Pasadena, we have high respect for trees and native life. We walked and studied the property more than a few times to seek the best location for the garage and a possible ADU. Current dwelling does not have a garage. It was touted as a 2-car garage, but the current space has French doors, not garage doors. And we're still not quite sure how our modern day cars could even get through the opening. We think when the home was built in 1931, the original attached garage was converted to a living space in 1936. Standing in the middle of the trees can take one to a different time in history. With more than 30 orange trees and many coveted oak trees, it's a bit difficult to find a location for our garage. There's a portion of the property, approximately half an acre, that sits on the southeast corner of Bennett and Cullen. That would be the ideal location for the garage without disturbing much of the echo factor and all the trees, and would well exceed the current required setbacks. However, the current regulations state detached accessory buildings cannot be located closer to the street than the residence, prohibiting one from building in this location. And for the above reasons, we do support the City Council's adoption of the current amended regulations, and we thank you for your time, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Do we have any other public comments?
At this time, Mayor, we have not received any other requests for public comment.
Then I will close the public comment period and bring it back to council for reports and statements. Mendel, first up.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to continue to offer my support for the businesses throughout our city, but especially those that are suffering. And I would encourage us all to support them in any way that we can by eating there, shopping there, doing whatever we can, buying the goods that they have. They are working so hard. And I just want to render my support. I also want to say thank you to Janet Stone for the tremendous night, or I guess nights, that she and her team had. What a virtual experience, and it was a wonderful time. And I'm sure that Janet will be sharing a little bit about that, but thank you. And my wife and I are going to enjoy some of the things that our bids won. So thank you. And Mr. Mayor, that's it.
Thank you, Mendel. Gary?
Just echo Mendel's comments, but one of the things that people are probably starting to see new in the some of the different business areas is we are seeing hairstylists and nail places actually moving their operations outdoors in order to meet the government regulations. So it may seem a little strange. I actually had the opportunity to get a haircut today with Fritz down at Campus Cut, sitting out on his balcony. So there are a lot of things that we have to be a little bit patient with. There might be some things that we have to walk around or cooperate with our neighboring businesses, but everybody's doing what they need to do to try to get through this. And with Joe's help, we'll all get through this. So just want to ask everybody to be patient. Thanks.
Thank you, Gary. David?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And fortunately, I believe she might have left the meeting, but I do want to welcome Vicki and to the American Christian Credit Union and thank them for their continued partnership with the Glendora community. Also want to echo the comments about Saturday night's virtual night on the plaza. My wife and I enjoyed it as well and had a wonderful time. I think they certainly met and exceeded expectations for the challenge to deliver a wonderful program. Congratulate them heartily for the great job. Thank them for their contributions to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Karen?
Thank you. Just want to remind everyone as we continue to go through this COVID time together, that the more we could focus on we and less on me, I think that we will all fare better. that as we continue to have concern for others and consider those things that we can do that help others rather than what each of us individually thinks, feels, or wants, that I think we will come through this being better. And so that's my encouragement, to continue to do those things, whether it's a face covering, a social distancing, to do those things that you're being asked to do for the betterment of the community. And also looking forward to our strategic planning on Thursday, and looking forward to ways that we can continue to help the community thrive and be a great place to live, work, and play. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Our Mayor's Coalition, which is comprised of about 50 mayors in Southern California, is continuing to apply pressure to our federal, state, and county officials to allocate shares of relief funds to our smaller cities. As is now, the larger cities are getting the lion's share of all those funds, and we're trying to break that loose. The city's weekly emergency disaster meeting continues to be helpful in keeping our agencies up to date, and as well as clarifying conflicting state and county health orders, which can be confusing at best. I can see Joe still on the meeting with us, and he can probably agree with that as well. It's quite challenging, and thankfully, again, we had no new orders this week. I continue to receive COVID-19 complaints. To help this process, our residents can reach out directly to the county health at 888-700-9995, or email them at ehmail@ph.lacounty.gov. Also, I'd like to put my thanks out there for everyone who put together the night on the plaza. It was so well done. But also there's other folks behind the scenes. Craig and Greg did an amazing job in doing the videotaping and putting that whole thing together from the visual standpoint. So my thanks to them. It was flawless. It came out amazing for what they for doing this for the first time virtually. So with that, I've not received any requests to reorder the agenda at this time. Does anyone care to reorder the agenda?
No.
No. All right. So with that, we'll go on to our public hearing that we have. Public hearing to consider an ordinance amending the Glendora Municipal Code regarding the regulations of accessory dwelling units. This was continued from July 13th, 2020. So I'll invite Development Director Jeff Kugel to present the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council, and the public who are interested in this item. This is a public hearing to amend the Glendora Municipal Code sections related to the regulation of accessory dwelling units. Next slide, please. Just a summary of what the ordinance is intended to address. Back in October of 2019, the state of California, the state legislature adopted new laws regarding the regulation of accessory dwelling units, which became effective on January 1st of this year. The new laws were created as part of a general state effort to facilitate more housing production within California. And all cities are required to implement regulations that are consistent with the new state laws, and that non-compliance with ordinances are null and void as a result of the new state laws. So the proposed ordinance will update Glendora's municipal code so it will be consistent with state law and the objectives outlined in those laws. Next slide, please. So to just briefly, some terms that I'll use during this presentation for yourself so you understand what I'm talking about. An ADU is an accessory dwelling unit. A junior ADU is a junior accessory dwelling unit. And the new state laws, there were a number of laws passed late last year, but generally I'll be referring to AB 68, AB 881, and SB 13 as they amended the state zoning law regarding ADUs. And I'll also, along the way, if you're taking notes, I will highlight specific times you might want to jot some numbers down. So when we get to the end of the presentation, it'll help guide some questions that you might have. So next slide, please. So just to define, what is an accessory dwelling unit? An ADU is an attached separate unit from an existing dwelling, and they're often called granny flats, or typically historically have been associated with a second unit or granny flat in with a single family home. They may include 1 or 2 bedrooms. They're a fully independent living unit and have a kitchen area, sanitation facilities, and living area. And under the new state law, they're allowed to be up to 1,200 square feet in size, subject to other limitations, but generally allow up to 1,200 square feet. And owner occupancy under the new state law is not required. Under previous iterations of the state law, the city could impose an owner occupancy requirement for an accessory dwelling unit. That's no longer the case. Next slide, please. This is just a photograph, an illustration of what might be an accessory dwelling unit. Typically, they might be located in they're located in a backyard. They can, and typically basically a unit that's smaller or subordinate to the main single family residence. Next slide, please. I'm going to go through just some general ways that, over the years, we have seen accessory dwelling units developed in the city, and I think are typically how you might see units developed. One of the ways that an accessory dwelling unit might be built first is, or the most traditional way, and that reflects the picture that you saw on the previous slide, is a detached accessory dwelling unit. So on this slide, I'm showing, the main dwelling, and the ADU in orange, and then you may have an attached or detached garage, and the ADU is located in the backyard. Next slide. An accessory dwelling unit may also be developed as an attached unit to the main dwelling, as shown here. Next slide, please. Another way that we've seen accessory dwelling units created, and this is also how junior accessory dwelling units are created, is an ADU is basically involving a remodel and building within the 4 walls of an existing main residence. Next slide, please. The next way that we see ADUs developed, and this became part of state law back in 2017, are conversion of existing detached or attached garages. So that green garage I had in previous slides is no longer there, and you can convert your attached or detached garage to a separate ADU, and you don't have to provide replacement parking for the main dwelling or provide parking for the accessory dwelling unit. Next slide. And next slide, please. Keep going. There we go. Okay, and the last way I'll cover for this type of an ADU is you can do an attached ADU to an existing garage. This would be the last and final way that you could do an ADU on your property, or the ones that we've most typically seen. These are one of these configurations is what we typically see on a submission. Next slide, please. So a junior ADU is a little bit different than an accessory dwelling unit. It is a unit that is under the law defined as being one that is contained within the existing walls of a single family residence. They typically include 0 to 1 bedrooms. They include a living area, efficiency kitchen, and may share sanitation facilities with the primary dwelling. So this is a key area where it's distinguished from the ADU, where an ADU has its own bathroom and shower. A junior ADU is distinguished by the fact that it might share the bathroom and shower with the main house. And another thing is that it's limited in size to only 500 square feet. And under the current law, the city can require that the owner live on the property if they install or create a junior accessory dwelling unit. Next slide, please. So this is typically how a junior accessory dwelling unit is. You take your main house and you carve out an area within the main house for a junior ADU, and then you have your garage. Next slide, please. A junior ADU under the current law, this is one of the newer features of the 2019 laws. You can combine on a single family lot junior accessory dwelling unit with an accessory dwelling unit on your single family property. Or so what started out with one house now can have up to 3 units on a single family lot in the city. And this is the law throughout the state of California. So next slide, please. So the Glendora code, the existing code that has been adopted by the city, is consistent up to the 2017 state law revisions. In 2017, that's the last time the state made a major revision to the ADU laws. Under our code, ADUs are permitted in both single and multiple family zones. So any properties that are single or multiple family can accommodate up to 1 ADU per lot. That's important to note. 1 ADU per lot we allow right now. And we only allow ADUs that are 1 bedroom and up to a maximum of 900 square feet. That's something to keep in your mind as we go on, the number on per lot and the maximum size. Additional parking is not required for an accessory dwelling unit. So if you build an ADU on your property, you don't have to create an additional parking space or additional covered parking. But under the current law, under our current regulations, you have to show that you can park another car on the property. You can convert garages under the current law. Under our current code, however, junior ADUs are not allowed. Under the 2017 law, junior ADUs were an option for cities to adopt, and Glendora chose not to do that. Next slide. So this is okay, so under the current law also, the size of an ADU is still subject to regulations such as floor area ratio, lot coverage, and open space requirements. So on a single or multiple family lot, we have a maximum floor area ratio on a single family lot. And so the ADU still has to, with the main house and the garage, can't exceed that limitation. In multifamily, we have open space requirements. That is currently part of the law. So that limits your ability to develop an ADU on a lot under our existing code. The location of ADUs is indicated in the illustrations. They're always in a side or rear yard or attached to the house. The setbacks are configured in such a way that a detached accessory dwelling unit must be 10 feet from the rear of the property and 5 to 7 feet from the side yard. And if it's attached to the main house, it has to maintain the same setbacks as the house. So next slide, please. And I have a couple of illustrations that will show this. So under our current law, you have your maximum 900 square foot ADU, 10 feet from the rear. In our single family zones, they're typically 5 or 7 feet side yard setbacks. And so that's how you would have to configure a detached ADU. Next slide, please. For an attached accessory dwelling unit, you have to maintain the setbacks of the main house. So a main single family house has to be 25 to 35 feet from the rear yard property line, depending on the single family zone it's in, and likewise 5 to 7 feet. Also, the 900 square foot limitation, an attached accessory dwelling unit under our current code can only be 30% of the square footage of the main dwelling. So for simple numbers, 30. So if you have 1,000 square foot house, the maximum size of the ADU could be 300 square feet. And in no case would we allow the ADU to exceed 900 square feet, regardless of the size of the house. That's kind of important to note as the maximum size for an ADU for an attached versus detached. And you'll see how that plays into the new code as I get to that. Next slide, please. Under the new state law, as indicated in an earlier illustration, you can have an ADU and a junior ADU on a single family lot with the main house. For owner occupancy for an ADU is no longer required under the law. As right now, the city requires that if anybody doing an ADU record a covenant on the property that they will live there. So we will not, that would no longer be a part of our code. If you have a junior ADU, we would require that you record a covenant that the owner live on the property. You also cannot require any additional parking on site for the ADU if you are located within 1/2 mile of public transit. And public transit is defined as everything ranging from any type of public transit. So virtually every single family area in the city is within 1/2 mile of a bus stop. And so we had looked at this before, and so we're not able to require on-site parking, and we haven't since 2017. So that's really not much of a change, but it's more specific in the law now. Next slide, please. Under the new state law, and under the current state law, actually, the minimum size that we can, or for a one-bedroom ADU that we can regulate, is 850 square feet. So we can't set a maximum size for an ADU, for a one-bedroom ADU that is less than 850 square feet. And that's important to note. For a two-bedroom ADU, we cannot set a maximum size less than 1,000 square feet. And overall, the state law defines an ADU as the maximum size equaling 1,200 square feet. In addition, the attached ADU may be 50% of the size of the main dwelling, which is different than our current code, as mentioned earlier. In addition, in cases where lot coverage or floor area ratio is exceeded, we must allow at least an 800 square foot ADU that is 16 feet tall and may be allowed within 4 feet of the side or rear setback. So those are a lot of numbers I threw at you, and hopefully you were taking notes, because I'll be giving you a test at the end of this presentation. Next slide, please. Again, the detached ADU, instead of being, I think an earlier slide I mentioned that we have a setback from the rear of 10 feet for an ADU. Now you have to allow an ADU within 4 feet of the side and rear yard property lines. As in comparison, accessory buildings like a detached garage or a pool house or a guest house can be within 3 feet. So this isn't really a big deal from that perspective for us. Wouldn't be that much of a change. ADUs are permitted in all single family and all multiple family zones. In multiple family zones, you may have up to 2 detached accessory dwelling units. So on a single family, you can have up to 1 detached or 1 ADU, attached or detached. In multiple family zones, it's a little bit different. So this is where it gets a little bit more complicated with the new law. So you can have 2 detached ADUs under the multifamily regulations. Next slide, please. And you can also convert, I got ahead of myself a little bit. You can also convert portions of the multifamily structures that are not used as ADUs to an ADU. So you can take garages in multiple family zones and convert them to ADUs, in addition to the 2 detached ADUs. So here's where you have the test. So you can see, here's my picture of my main dwelling. So 1,200 square feet on that would be the maximum size. 1,000 square feet, the maximum regulatory size that we can set for a 2-bedroom, or not the maximum size, but the we can't regulate it below 1,000 square feet for a 2-bedroom ADU. 850 square feet, that's the minimum size for a 1-bedroom ADU. And if you exceed your floor area ratio, or you can't, fit a 1 or 2 bedroom ADU on your lot for some reason, we have to figure out a way to at least allow you an 800 square foot ADU that is 4 feet from the side and rear property lines and 16 feet in height. Next slide, please. For an attached ADU, I want to point this out. At the last meeting, we got a letter from a public interest law firm. Originally the ordinance had the setbacks for a attached ADU to match the main dwelling. They pointed out that there really should be, if it's an attached ADU, that it be allowed to be 4 feet from the side or rear property line. And the city attorney reviewed that letter, and this is the one change that we made as a result of that letter. And that has been incorporated into the ordinance and is part of the staff report, illustrating the table that we changed that would allow this type of configuration. And again, where the attached ADU is 50% of the size of the main dwelling. Next slide. So under the proposed ordinance, which you have as part of your packet and what we're considering tonight, we've explained what our current code says, what the new state law requires that we do. And so this is what staff has put together and has been reviewed and recommended by the Planning Commission. That ADUs are permitted, just like before, in all single and multiple family zones. Junior accessory dwelling units are only allowed on a single family zoned property. We also added an item. We prohibited ADUs to be constructed in very high fire hazard zones where those houses are not accessed by a street meeting city standards. So I put a little asterisk there. So as I go through these standards, the standards that where we would have flexibility on changing, and it's on our discretion, I put a little asterisk. And so the reason for this regulation was actually in reviewing other codes, the county's code actually has this requirement. So if there are a few areas, and I'm sure all of us remember the 2014 Colby fire, where there are some narrow streets up at the end of Glendora Avenue and up in Bluebird where they're not public streets, they're small, just driveway easements. And so like the county code, we thought it was wise to not allow additional, units up in high fire hazard areas where they're not accessible by a street that allows two-way traffic, essentially. Next slide, please. We proposed in the ordinance that the maximum size for an attached accessory dwelling unit be 1,200 square feet. Again, that's another asterisk. I mentioned the 850 and 1,000 square foot limitations, but in reviewing other codes and actually based on questions and demand for these units, and the number of square footage difference between 1,000 and 1,200, it's deemed to be a simpler way to regulate it for those interested in doing an ADU. Detached, or I'm sorry, yeah, actually I made a little mistake here. It's detached ADUs are up to 1,200 square feet. Attached ADUs are maybe 50% of the primary dwelling, and ADUs may be 1 or 2 bedrooms under the proposed ordinance. Next slide, please.
So Jeff, you're saying you didn't pass your own test?
No.
That was a trick question to see if we caught it.
I think so. I think a gremlin got into the PowerPoint and made a change. Anyway, moving right along. Also in the proposed ordinance, we're requiring that the ADU be 1 story in height, and that if they're attached to a main house, that they be located on a ground floor versus located on the 2nd floor. That was primarily, there are some examples where in years past, second units on some older single family properties have been built on top of a garage in the back of the property. And that is now, our accessory structures are only allowed to be 1 story, so we don't allow that. Likewise with a main house, because accessory dwelling units must have a separate entrance, we try to, deter exterior staircases and things like that on single family homes. And so we decided to just allow them at the ground floor and not allow 2-story garages with ADUs. And we think that that's consistent with state law. Detached ADUs, maybe we allow them to be up to 16 feet in height, which is also part of the state law. Next slide, please. Setbacks, instead of 4 feet that the state allows you to do, we decided to do 3 feet because other accessory buildings are allowed to be 3 feet from the side or rear property line, and just to make it easier again for both homeowner, property owner, investors, and staff to administer, to be consistent, 3 feet is just a nominal difference, 1 or 4 or 3 feet. And then attached, same as the main building, except this is where we would go with 4 feet for side and rear if it's attached to the main house. Next slide. For a junior accessory dwelling unit, this is just really, we took the language right out of the state law, 500 square feet and contained within the walls of an existing or proposed single family residence. This is an area, maybe could have put an asterisk here because the way the law is written, it says that it's supposed to be within the walls of an existing single family residence, but oftentimes people are saying, well, so what do I do if I want to do a junior accessory dwelling unit? Do I do my regular addition and then come back to you to convert it to a junior accessory dwelling unit? We get those questions from time to time, and we thought, yeah, what's the difference here if the intent is still the same, that you can do a junior ADU as part of within the walls of an existing single-family home. Next slide, please. The number of ADUs on a property, you may have one ADU, one junior ADU on a single-family lot. So a total of 3 units on a single-family lot would be the maximum. In multifamilies, you can have 2 detached ADUs on a multiple family property. Next slide, please. Conversions and replacement parking. Garages and other structures may be converted to an ADU. So if you have a pool house or a game room or what have a garage, you convert that to an ADU. Replacement parking for an ADU for a converted garage is not required. And in addition to the 2 accessory dwelling units detached that are allowed on multifamily, multifamily properties may convert areas that are not used as livable space to create an additional 25% more units on the property. So if you have a 4-unit multifamily property, you can convert 1 garage. If you have an 8-unit multifamily property, you can convert, let's say, 2 garage spaces to make an ADU, and so on. So in addition, you can do, so that's really where one of the areas where the law really expanded the ability to create these types of units was what they did with multifamily. So far, we have not had any multifamily property owners take advantage of this, although we have had some questions. We haven't had anybody take advantage of that. So next slide, please. And I'm almost done. The review process, there is no special zoning or discretionary review for accessory dwelling units or junior accessory dwelling units. By law, they must be ministerially approved, meaning that if you meet the regulations and submit your plans to the building division for a permit, we just issue a permit. We review it only for meeting the minimum standards only, and that's required and explicit within the state law. Next slide. There are a couple other sort of indirectly related amendments that we made. Actually, the first speaker spoke directly to this one, was that we have a requirement that detached accessory buildings have to be no closer to the street than the main house. And we have some properties where either the home is set back really far back or they have a really big lot, and it doesn't always make sense for that regulation. So we're proposing an amendment that requires detached accessory structures to at least be beyond the front setback, even if the house is, let's say, further back, or like the speakers who spoke at public comment, if they have a big lot, you just keep the garage or accessory dwelling unit outside of the minimum front setback. We also are recommending that the maximum height of accessory structures be raised from 15 to 16 feet to match the ADU requirements, and that thirdly, that the total area of accessory buildings, and right now it's 900 square feet, and we're proposing to increase that to 1,200 square feet. So you could have a 1,200 square foot garage and an 800 square foot ADU for that matter, and get both of those things together. And then lastly, table A in the zoning code, the floor area ratio for a single family home is 35%. Excluding a attached garage, and so we wanted to expand that to that exclusion to include also detached garages. I don't know exactly why there's attached versus detached is not excluded from that floor area ratio, but this is also something that we get a lot of questions on and don't have really a good answer as to why that limitation is there for detached versus attached garages. So lastly, next slide. No, next slide. So now with that concludes my presentation. It is a public hearing to consider the ordinance. After questions and deliberation would be the right thing to do. And then we recommend, the Planning Commission recommended that this ordinance be adopted at their meeting in June on a 3-2 vote. I would lastly indicate that after the ordinance is adopted, this is one of those ordinances that the state is watching cities very closely on, and requires that we extend the adopted ordinance to the state of California Housing and Community Development Department for their review. And if they have any objections or concerns, they'll let us know and in writing, and then we would have to change the ordinance to accommodate that. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Jeff. This will take us to public comment, open public comment, and invite members of the public to address the city council. Each public speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Please address your comments to me, the presiding officer. Deputy City Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Mayor, at this time, we have received no requests for public comment either via the Zoom meeting or email.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And then I will close the public hearing, bring it back to the city council. And now, Jeff, it's your turn to be questioned. So Gary, do you want to start us off?
Sure. First question, Jeff, is there any minimum lot size in place for this? Or are we in a position that with like a 2,000 square foot lot, if there's a 400 square foot home on it, there could be ADUs attached to it?
There is no minimum lot size. One of the provisions of the state law is that the city cannot establish a minimum lot size for an ADU.
Okay. And then when we don't have to require additional parking, but does that limit our ability to enforce overnight on-street parking?
It does not.
Okay, so if somebody added this and didn't add any additional parking and didn't have anywhere to park, they would have to park off-site somewhere or buy a permit from the city?
Correct. They would, yeah, the city does have long-term permits available that you can apply for. So they would have to do that.
Okay. HOAs, do they have the ability to put any restrictions on here?
You know, that is a question we've talked about that a little bit with the city attorney. It might be an area of the law that needs to be tested, but I at this point, our understanding is that HOAs, let's say if you had a condo project, that an HOA could not stop someone if they wanted to convert, you know, their garage to an ADU. The only limitation would be the number of units on the overall site.
Okay, and then on the attached or a junior ADU, there's a percentage of the current home that's a maximum size, but I didn't see anything on detached. So if it's a detached, can it be up to 100% of the current home that's already there?
You're talking about detached, you know, a single family lot?
Yeah.
So a detached ADU, the maximum size would be 1,200 square feet.
So if I had 1,000 square foot home with this new ordinance, I could put a 1,200 square foot ADU on that home or on that property.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Front step back, and I've got another question here, but I cannot read my writing. So that's all I have at this point. Again, this is something that's coming down from the state, and we're required to make these adjustments, but I'd like to try to be as careful as we possibly can and not be too generous with anything that we move forward with. If we as a community make a decision at some point in the future to be more generous, I think that's a decision that we can make, but it shouldn't be regulated to us by the state of California. So that's my 2 bits. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. David?
Most of my questions are parking related, and I recognize the state doesn't care about parking. One of the comments that was shared is that there is no parking restriction if we're within 1/2 mile of a transit stop, which most all of the town is, unless your transit organization, such as the one that serves Glendora, shuts down those transit stops. So there's a whole host of them around town that are posted closed. So if we are mandated to not have a parking ordinance change or a enforcement of because being near a bus, but the bus isn't running, wonder what the state's attitude toward that might be. I'm also concerned about the number of new projects that have been presented and approved this year that have minimal to little parking. incorporated into the project, and they're very dense. And then you start taking the percentages of, let's take 25% of the current non-living space, add 2 dwellings, and the project had little to no parking to begin with. Are we in fact just setting ourselves up for a major problem and a lot of neighbor complaint down the road? I foresee that coming, and that's unpleasant to have to think about. So it's basically all parking issue. And Jeff, thank you for a great report. It's a great learn. And I recognize those aren't in our choices, but I just declare that's going to haunt us. I don't know what we can do about that. I don't have any other comments. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Mendel?
Mr. Mayor, Jeff, thank you for an excellent report. Obviously, this is something that we don't have much of a choice in, but the questions that I have on a detached, will the electric, water, and gas lines be tied into the main house, or are those separately run, built, and done? Or, explain that.
Yeah, they are not, we do not require separate utility service for an ADU. That was actually, we used to, and as part of the 2017 law, we used to require separate water, separate gas, separate electrical meters, and the whole, like a fully separate unit. Under the 2017 law, and what's been our code since that period, is that all of the utilities, gas, water, electrical, are tied into the main house, typically.
Okay, so the owner, assuming that they rented the unit out, the owner would have to devise a plan to either build that into the rent or have the renter somehow pay. I guess that's what you're saying.
Yeah, if they if they wanted to, they have the option. If they want to request a separate utility meter for water, electrical, gas, they can do that. We just can't require that.
Okay. Second thing, what does this do to property taxes? So I'll just use my home. So if I put 1,000-foot rental in, a unit in, is that separately taxed, and does the city earn more, or is it just blended into my property tax? And if I'm a Prop 13, how does that work?
So yeah, and I'll speak to this to my knowledge of it, because this is more of a county tax issue. But like any addition or improvement to your home, if you do an addition, the County of Los Angeles, or a pool for that matter, the County of Los Angeles comes and collects our building permit information on a regular basis. And then when they do some type of reassessment where they add the value of that improvement to the overall assessed value of your house. However, under the Prop 13 provisions, they're not adding that increased value to the existing structure. They're only adding the value of the new structure. And so you would see an increase in your property taxes for the ADU on the property.
Jeff, if I can just add in really quick, that's exactly correct from the valuation standpoint. The city councilman, as you know, gets its sales tax usually in 2 main portions a year, but we also have a supplemental property tax line for items like this that are added on. So pool, patio covers, all those items that are permitted, and it's the valuation they're in.
Okay. Last question. Are there any specific rules for to accommodate folks that have any sort of special needs? So again, like using my house, if I put a unit like in my backyard and a handicapped person needed a concrete walkway, does the owner, does the city have to mandate that, or are there any, I guess what I'm saying, are there any special accommodations that we need to incorporate within our rule to afford folks the ability to rent out these things that may need accommodations?
At this point, the law does not require that, that ADUs be made ADA accessible like other types of, multifamily units. They just have to abide by the same building standards as really the main house. The one building code issue that is sort of unrelated to this, is in terms of what you do have to upgrade, is that you do not have, under current building code, you typically have to require fire sprinklers for the inside of a new unit. But unless it's required for the main house, you don't have to require that for the unit. So that's really the only major building code, I think, change as a result of the laws.
Okay, and lastly, this is a statement, but I would feel, I think, more support if we could lower this to 1,000 square feet. I'm just concerned about basically the build out, parking. The bigger you build, the more people show up, the more cars. And this is not a hill I'm going to die on, but 1,000 would fit my scenario a little bit more than what staff has indicated. So just food for thought. But that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mendel. Karen?
I think Mr. Thompson's looking for some retirement income. Yeah, that ADU.
That or someplace else to live if Rihanna kicks him out.
Yeah, that's the deal.
But I think at a time such as this, when there is a housing crisis in our state, housing shortage in our community for affordable housing, I think that this is welcome. So I support this and think that this will give families lots of opportunities, those that own the properties, that extra income so they could stay in their house. Somebody who's looking for a smaller place that they could afford to live in, an opportunity to live there. So I think it's a win-win on both sides of the equation. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Jeff, Gary and David got most of my questions, but I still have a few more. If there is a utility panel on the easement side or the setback side, can you still have only a 3-foot setback, or would it have to be more for a utility panel?
That is more of a building code question. It certainly would not be part of the zoning regulations, or it's not part of the state law. So to the extent that you could accommodate that under the building code would be my answer. I don't know whether or not the building code would allow that.
So if they did place one there, then the setback in the ordinance would not be applicable?
Yeah, if the building code for fire safety reasons would require a greater setback, or some other measure, then that would they'd have to set the structure back further to accommodate that. But however, I will say that there are many accessory buildings and structures that are built within 3 feet of side and rear property lines, and built within what the building code allows.
Okay, thank you for that. I too have a problem with the parking. If you can convert your garage now as it is, and you put a family in there. You can have a junior ADU, you have the ADU, and then you have the main house. You can conceivably have 4 families living in one facility. And if they had 2 cars each, that's a lot of cars. And then they're not going to have a garage to put it in, so they're going to spill out in the apron of the driveway and then onto the street. And then you have an expectation of a single family community that has a single family community, feel and look to it, and now you have multiple family automatically by this. So this is where my concern is. I also understand that we do have no choice in this. This is coming from the central planning in Sacramento, they want to seem to take care of our zoning laws for us. And it's going to get, I think, even more constraining. So, so with that, that's all of my questions that I have. Is there any final comments that anyone has? Gary?
Well, you know, I would just like to say, and Karen, I agree, we've got a housing crisis that we need to be dealing with, but this is not the answer to it. This is a terrible solution. It's going to drive up the cost of housing like we continue to do in Sacramento. It's going to drive up the cost of single family homes on small lots because you're going to be able to turn them into multifamily homes. And this is not a solution to our housing crisis. This is another effort for Sacramento to do something that's actually going to drive up the cost of housing again. And they're going to come back and go, woe is me, what's going on here? What's with the big bad builders and the real estate people and the landlords? We've got to address the housing crisis in a way that we can get more people to live in areas where jobs are. And this is not a solution to that. So I just need to disagree with you on that. I don't think this is a solution, but it is going to drive up the cost of real estate in California across the board. And we're already the highest price state in the country.
Does anyone else have any final comments?
Yeah, I would just say that I don't think the answer to the housing crisis is one silver bullet. It's multifaceted. And this is just one way to do that and allow people who want to live in the suburbs and away from some of the places they've had to choose to live, gives them another housing opportunity. So I think the more options we provide people, the better. So.
Thank you, Karen. Madam Deputy City Clerk, could you just read the motion, please?
Yes. The recommended motion is to waive full reading, read by title only, introduce for first reading, Ordinance 2053, entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Glendora, California, amending Title 21 zoning of the Glendora Municipal Code for consistency with the state law pertaining to accessory dwelling units, Plan 20-0013.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
Can I ask a question about them before we present a motion?
Absolutely.
If this is the first reading of this, it's going to come back to us for a second reading. If we as a body decide that 1,000 square foot maximum size for a 2-bedroom unit and a 1-bedroom unit for that matter would fit better with the city of Glendora, does that need to be done now or can that be done at the next meeting?
I think we should do it now.
Yes, that's correct.
Now.
You do it at the second reading, you'll have to reintroduce the ordinance.
Okay, thanks. Karen, if you want to go ahead and make the motion.
Well, what does the state law require though? Is this going to be something that we're going to keep battling with if we have to change it to the 1,200, Mr. Kugel or Mr. City Attorney?
In terms of the size of the units, I think the maximum size of the unit is something we have a little bit of flexibility with. So the state law says that you have to allow at least a 1,000 square foot unit for a 2-bedroom and at least an 850 square foot unit for a 1-bedroom. And the maximum is 1,200, and that was the recommendation that we made.
Okay.
So if it sounds like there's a bit of a consensus for the 1,000 square foot maximum, what would the motion read then, if that were the case?
You'd move to adopt the ordinance amending the maximum size from 1,200 square feet to 1,000.
Does anyone want to make a motion along either one of those options?
Okay, I will move to waive the full reading and move forward with the ordinance amending the maximum size to 1,000 square feet for both 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units.
Is there a second?
I will
Second.
second.
So we have a motion and a second.
Okay, at this point, we can take a roll call. Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis,
Yes.
and Mayor Alawas.
Yes.
And that passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Elvia. This takes us now to the consent calendar. I have not received any requests to poll. Does anyone wish to either poll or make a comment on any items 5 through 8?
No.
Move
Motion
to
to
approve. Oh, go. I second Karen's motion.
All right, Deputy City Clerk, do you want to do a roll call
Yes,
on
thank
items
you.
5 through 8?
I do want to read that we do have a couple of resolutions to read out on this consent calendar. For item number 8, conflict of interest code is to adopt joint City Council Resolution CC 2020-46 and CC 2020-46 SA, FN 2020-02, HA 2020-02, entitled Resolution of the City Council, Successor Agency, Public Finance Authority, and Housing Authority of the City of Glendora, California, amending the City of Glendora Conflict of Interest Code for 2020 and rescinding Joint Resolution CC 2018-42, CC 2018-42 SA, and HA 2018-03. So we currently have a motion by Karen Davis and a second, I believe it was, who seconded? Gary Boyer? And
I believe so.
yes, I will take a roll call vote. Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis,
Yes.
and Mayor Alawas.
Yes.
And the consent calendar passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Elvia. This brings us to unfinished business. Affirm the purchases made in fiscal year 2020 during the local emergency declaration. I'd like to invite Account Manager Brittany Aguilera to present the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. I'll just be giving a brief presentation just to supplement the staff agenda to affirm purchases made in fiscal year 2020 during the local emergency declaration. Next slide. Just a little bit of background. On March 24th, 2020, City Council approved the declaration of local emergency response to COVID-19, which within this resolution, it authorized city departments to make the necessary purchases for the immediate protection of life, health, or property. I know that you're all aware that the state and county orders required social distancing to stop the spread of COVID-19 as well as flatten the curve of COVID-19. And even though with the closure of City Hall, essential services, city services continue by appointment, phone, online, through Zoom, and other city website portals. In addition, a virtual City Hall has been upgraded and implemented and been made available to customers for their use. To further adhere to the orders of social distancing and to further protect staff, modified office schedules were implemented, which leads to one of the purchases made during the local emergency. Next slide, please. Out of the purchases made during the local emergency, 2 were identified that exceeded the $25,000 threshold. One of them was the in-and-out card reader system installation on the library facilities. This allowed library facilities to remain closed to the public and allowed staff to enter through badge access, which this eliminated the need to provide any sort of keys or assign any staff to lock and open the doors for incoming staff. The second was to purchase 50 laptop computers, which enabled staff to appropriately work from home to effectively practice social distancing while maintaining core job functions. We can take finance, for example. We're all located in a bullpen of sorts. Staff is really close together, but we were able to strategically plan the 2 schedules and with the laptop computers, we've been able to stay connected with each other through Teams, answer emails from customers and citizens, as well as even forward phone calls through the laptops. Next slide. At this time, I just wanted to recommend that City Council adopt the resolution as well as authorize the Administrative Services Director to make the necessary budget adjustments for these purchases.
Thank you, Brittany. I'll bring it back to council. Gary?
No questions.
Thank you. David?
No questions, thank you.
Mendel?
Did I miss this? Is any of this expense going to be reimbursed through our CARES Act or any federal funding?
Yes, yeah, we're actively seeking out reimbursement through the CARES Act and the FEMA reimbursement funding. And either one of those, we're able to reimburse under certain specific categories. So yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. You know, I support it. Thank you.
Karen?
No questions.
Thank you. I do have a question along the line that Mendel just had on the CARES Act. We do retain ownership on our purchases, even though we're going to get refunded up to 70%, correct?
That, I believe that's under FEMA, that there's a 75% yeah, 75%, but I believe so. I could defer that question to a later time, but anything
Brittany, that's accurate.
Okay.
You're absolutely correct. So the FEMA is a match of 25% to 30% of city funding, depending on the funding source, and the CARES Act is 100% cost reimbursement. We could look at maybe supplementing both of them together if possible. So, and Mayor, you are correct. We would retain ownership of all of those items.
So would we get 100% reimbursed between FEMA and CARE, or?
There is a very high likelihood that we will have 100% reimbursement based on that, yes.
So it's also my understanding that we are electronically filing for state and federal reimbursement. Is that correct? And how long does that process typically take? Is that speeding up the processes? We're going to file electronically?
I'll answer briefly. Hurricane Katrina is still an open claim with the federal government, just to put it in perspective. So you're 1 to 2 years away from receiving FEMA reimbursement. However, Washington is sort of more attuned to what's going on, and we get to work with one of the San Gabriel Valley groups to help with the FEMA reimbursement. But it's been electronically submitted for a long time, just the federal government moves at the speed of slow.
That was back in the day of clay tablets.
One would argue we're still there.
All right, well, that's all the questions I have. Does council have any final questions?
No.
Nope. Okay, Deputy City Clerk, you want to read the recommendations into the record?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. At this time, the recommended action is to approve purchases exceeding $25,000 made in fiscal year 2020 during the proclamation of the existence of a local emergency in the amount of $101,286.80, and adopt a City Council Resolution CC 2020-47 entitled "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Glendora, California, approving purchases exceeding $25,000 made during the period of proclamation of an existence of a local emergency, and authorize the Administrative Services Director to make necessary budget adjustments." Do we have a motion?
I will move.
I think I heard David Friedendahl and and Mendel seconded.
Second.
And I will take a roll call vote. Councilmember Thompson?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis?
Yes.
And Mayor Alawas?
Yes.
And that motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Aldia. This brings us to new business, item number 10, approve amendment number 3 to landscape maintenance and weed abatement agreement with Priority Landscaping Services, and adopt a resolution amending Glendora's authorized position control for FY 2020-2021. Invite Park Supervisor Raquel Falco to present the staff report.
Good evening, everyone. City Council, City Manager, Executive Team, and my colleagues. I'm happy to see that everyone is doing well. I'm here to present on Amendment number 3, and it's to the existing landscape services agreement between the City of Glendora and Priority Landscape Services. This section will provide the support for the Parks Division in the maintenance of Louis Pompey Memorial Sports Park. Next slide, please. Well, next slide, there you go. The current, let's see, the current landscape contractor is Priority Landscape Services. The agreement was originally signed in June of 2018 and expires of June 30th of 2022. So we have 2 more years left with them. Just to give you some background, the original agreement includes the reservoirs, medians, 7 parks and facilities. Amendment number 1 was signed shortly after, following the Landscape Maintenance District Prop 218 ballot results, which included the landscape assessments. Amendment number 2 was also approved, and that includes the holiday lights installation in the downtown area. And hopefully amendment number 3 will fund the landscape services in their entirety at the Louis Pompey Memorial Sports Park. Next slide, please. Okay, so Louis Pompey is located in District 4, just south of the 210 freeway. It's approximately 20.5 acres. We've got 4 multi-use fields of natural grass, which we mow weekly, and 1 artificial turf, 7 acres of slopes, and 5 acres of hardscapes. And I must point out, we have an irrigation system with just over 130 valves. Next slide, please. All right, here before you, I've outlined some of the basic tasks. These tasks are what the crews perform to ensure that the park is safe and in decent shape. The image here is the cover of our most recent Parks Maintenance Manual. The manual details all that is needed to happen at our 12 city parks to maintain a good level of service. So you'll see that there's quite a few items here, but there's a lot more detail in the manual, as well as all of the sites listed. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's a little background. Currently, we have 2 staff members that perform turf maintenance at Louis Pompey. And Priority Services is offering a 5-person crew to assist with the turf maintenance, landscape, facilities, and all that is needed for the park to have an excellent level of service. And if this amendment is approved, our park staff can focus on the remaining 5 city parks, 4 facilities. We've got 2 wilderness areas and other park-related service requests, such as park building maintenance, root pruning, city trees for streets division, and other items as they come up. Next item, please. So the fiscal impact would be $85,000 annually. We do have salary savings in the form of 3 part-time positions. These positions under the proposed resolution will be eliminated, and the funds totaling $68,308 will be transferred to our contract services account. And then the remaining balance of $16,692 will be covered under the same account, contract services. And to your right, you'll see an image of the items that are listed as part of the scope of work. Next item, please. So we ask that City Council approve amendment number 3, adopt City Council resolution authorize Administrative Services Director to make budgetary adjustments, and authorize mayor to execute the contract agreement. Are there
Thank you,
any
Raquel.
questions? You're welcome.
Thank you, Raquel. I'll bring you back to council. Gary, you want to start us off?
Sure. My understanding is right now the 3 part-time positions are currently vacant. Is that correct?
This is correct, Gary.
Yeah, so nobody's actually going to be laid off or lose their job because of this change. It's, you know, there's a lot of times it's better for us to contract services than to deal with individual employees, and it's nice to have some consistency around the city. But I do have one question about the parks. As you pull into the east parking lot, the area that is on the south side of that driveway, is that part of the maintenance project as well?
Are you referring to the slope on the
Yes.
right-hand side?
Yes.
Most of that does belong to the city, you know, right where the fence, there's a wrought iron fence and then a chain link fence. So south of those 2 barriers, I believe is county.
That's county area.
Mhm.
And then the spreading ground that is there for water, that's all county. And is the new maintenance contract, is there any correlation with what they may be doing with that area as well?
The spreading ground, I believe that's the area east of the Louis Pompey Park. Yeah, that would be LA County still, not city.
Okay. That's still LA County. Okay, thanks. That's the only question I had.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. David?
Answered, thank you.
You're good, you said?
Yes, I am.
Mendel?
Support it. Thank you.
Karen?
Just Gary's question, just another part of that. Is any of that slope at all Diamond Ridge's responsibility or no?
The area Diamond Ridge is responsible for anything south of that wrought iron fence. There's a wrought iron fence.
Okay, so up to then they don't have any responsibility. Okay,
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
That was it.
Thank you.
Raquel, we have a $16,692 difference, an increase basically in cost to the city. Now, is there any other staff, city staff that touched this project that could be eliminated, as far as not eliminated, but wrong choice of words, but will not have to touch this project, such as plumbing, irrigation, things of that nature?
All the irrigation will be included in the new amendment. Under the 16,000 in contract services, we will probably eliminate, we use True Green to help us apply herbicides on all of the turf to prevent weeds. So that's probably $7,000 in a year that we spend with them to do that, the herbicide application. So
is that an add back?
We would, yeah, we would eliminate that expense, and it would be done through this amendment.
Okay, so that $16,000 would actually be much less than that.
Correct.
And this is the first year, Mayor, that this would go into play. So as we look at the utilization of materials and supplies from the Parks Division, we continue to monitor sort of the services provided, and sometimes those resources can be allocated more to other parks. So we get better service in those areas as well.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions that I have. Deputy City Clerk, you want to read the city recommendation?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The recommended action at this time is to approve amendment number 3 with Priority Landscape Services LLC in the amount not to exceed $85,000 to adopt City Council Resolution CC 2020-48 entitled A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Glendora, California, approving an amendment to the authorized position control for fiscal year 2020-2021 for the City of Glendora, and authorize the Administrative Services Director to make the necessary budget adjustments to move budget from part-time compensation accounts to contract services, and to authorize the mayor to execute the contract amendment. Do we have a motion?
I will move.
Okay, second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Friedendahl, a second from Councilmember Boyer. I will take a roll call vote. Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis,
Yes.
and Mayor Alawas.
Yes.
And the motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Elvia.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So this brings us to council and staff items. I'm going to let our media let them know ahead of time. I'm going to unmute the rest of our staff, since this is going to be our last meeting until September in case they need to opine on something important. So I'm going to do that, but I'm going to start with council first. I'm giving them fair warning. Mendel?
Well, as you just said, this is it for a month. So I trust everybody has a restful, productive month off. And we'll see everybody back on September the 8th. And be safe and be well and mask up.
Thank you, Mendel. Gary?
No comments. Everybody have a good summer.
David?
No comments, thank you.
Karen?
Wear your mask, wash your hands, and be nice to one another.
Thank you, Karen. Adam? Adam?
We're good. I will let other staff speak on my behalf if they're not bailing right now, exiting the meeting.
As fast as they can. Bill?
Nothing to add except there's no vacation in August for me.
Allison?
Nothing.
All right, Matt?
No, same goes for me. Enjoy your month off. It's well deserved.
Thank you. Janet?
Just cheers to the Glendora Public Library Friends Foundation for their many years of support and their ability to throw a great party, whether in person or online. Thank you to them. That's it.
Thank you, Janet. John? John, you still with us? Gary? No, he bounced. Allison? No? June?
Happy vacation. I am excited that I don't have to bring to you any special meetings in August like we did last year. And so enjoy.
All right, Kathleen? You okay, Kathleen?
Nothing. Thank
Nothing.
you.
Those are the sounds of feet running away from her computer.
Anyone I left off that want to make any announcements? Wonderful, thank you. So, excuse me?
We're just all laughing.
Well, good, at my expense, thank you. Just as a final reminder of our planning session this Thursday, the 30th, we'll see everyone in September, and remember to be kind to one another, as Karen mentioned earlier. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Right.
Good night.
Adjourning at 8:48.
Oh, I'm sorry. We adjourn at 8:48 p.m.
Thank you,
Got ahead
Matt.
of myself. Good night, everyone.
Night.